Welcome to Inside the Numbers, folks, with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris. It's Monday. Don't forget, if you like these videos, don't forget to like them, smash the like button, subscribe, whether you're on YouTube, you're on Locals, you're on Rumble. In fact, if you're on YouTube right now, mosey on over to Rumble and subscribe. Hit the like button on Getter. If you're on Rumble, mosey on over to YouTube and hit subscribe. Don't forget. All right. Of course, the best place to follow us is on Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com. Listen, a couple of the shows this week, if we are going to do this, because you're like, bent my arm, uncle. So I'm going to go ahead and do some Rust Belt polling this week. And we'll talk a little bit about that questionnaire today, actually, in the latter part of the show. And then we will, of course, put up the questionnaire on Locals. It's going to be a little bit confusing, though. The Rust Belt poll, even if I show the online version, is confusing. You'll see different voter screens, and then it'll look like everyone has this large questionnaire that doesn't really make sense. But it does when you look at the logic, the branching, randomization, all of that good stuff. It will open up with a different registered voter screen. We'll be keeping these unlikely. We're not tightening the screen yet. We'll do the difference. We'll show the difference between registered voters and likely voters, but we're not going to tighten that screen and bump anybody out yet, because we want to show you what the unlikely voter situation looks like in this country. Because right now, yet another data point out from last week was Emerson. We're going to look at something today that shows that if Trump gets these low propensity voters out, they favor him by a very large margin, and it can do a lot of difference in the Electoral College. Right, but you're going to see that the registered voter screen is different. It'll ask immediately, are you registered and eligible in one of these states? When, of course, getting them from the voter file, we already know whether they are or they are not, but we need to make sure we're not getting somebody else from a different household. You know the whole drill. All right. I want to go over this study that showed, in case you missed it, there's a massive study. They're calling it the largest study, the coverage of from Politico. I don't really know if that's true, to be honest, because there is, I believe, Signal, and then there's Morning Consult, which may not show you 15,000 voters all at once, but they're interviewing 5,000 voters on a rolling average over the course of 3 days, something like that. So they're using balanced, and I can show you some of this stuff to help it make sense to you when we look at the methodology statement, like we are going to look at today with this particular study. But what I'm getting at is, when we look at the methodology, you're going to see how long it took for them to conduct these interviews. Personally, I don't care if it's 15,000 interviews. I don't like conducting surveys over 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I don't like that. All right. You can get a larger amount. I'm going to tell you what I think is hindering them with their data collection. I mean, this is something we pioneered, online collection. We know what can really lag a survey, what can slow surveys down. There's such things as implementing too strict of quotas, which will slow the whole damn thing down. And I get what they're trying to do, but there is technically a better way to do it. Laura probably will not want me to specifically say what it is, because that's part of the secret sauce, right? And I get into this with companies like, and not into it in like arguments. They find it interesting what we do. Cint, Lucid, Dynate is another one. We tend to favor Lucid at this point, but we show them that you don't need to overextend these quotas, that if you do other things correctly, it will come back balanced. All right. And I'm going to explain more of what I'm talking about in a bit. Let's take a look at the overall picture here, right? Because what we have is this little electoral map. It's going to be, it's pretty cool. Stacked data strategy conducted this survey. 12 months to go. This is the current state of the race, not a forecast of what they think is going to happen in November of 2024. It is a forecast of what they believe will happen now. Because it is such a large survey, they can do a lot of cool stuff that we've shown you on MarketSite, other tools that we used to do, regression and post-stratification, which allows us, when we're looking at ethnicities, for instance, a state like Wisconsin, right? It's a very big pain in the butt. The state of Wisconsin, you're going to have Polk and Rusk and all these other counties, Sauk, that are relatively small but have enormous predictability when it comes to how the state is going to fall. Juneau County is another one. which Trump won in 20, but lost the state amazingly, miraculously. But I digress. They use post-stratification and regression in order to try to project how these places are going to vote, even at the county level with smaller subgroups, all right, which is really cool. And there's a little drop down here you can see with independent candidates. All right, let's see. It's going to load up, or maybe not. Click on the state. All right, I guess not. It's not doing it. That's interesting. Hasn't worked yet. But the bottom line is, we're going to stick to the Biden versus Trump anyway, because that's the rematch, and we're going to put it up. As I have told you with our polling, it does not matter if it's Kamala Harris or Gavin Newsom. I understand there are a lot of Republicans out there are afraid of Gavin Newsom. He's super slick. But the fact of the matter is, Gavin Newsom did not play well in the Rust Belt at all in our polling. He didn't play in some of the southern states that are still remotely competitive. North Carolina with Trump is not really competitive. They have it kind of close. Other polls do not. Other polls have North Carolina like Trump +9. In 22, in our final poll that had Ted butt up by 4, which was damn near right on the money, we had Trump up by 11. So and by Georgia, the same thing. We had him up by like 9 at one point. It's very close to the morning consult poll. I don't know that that's the case now, and we're going to find out. But when it comes to Gavin Newsom, he loses competitiveness in these states, right? And you see that it's really pretty close here with Donald Trump, 50.4 to 47.8 or 47.79. Very cool that they did that the way others do. Some of them are a little bit weird to me. The results we just saw in Virginia, Republicans actually cast, there were more Republican votes in the state of Virginia than there were Democratic votes. What happened? They just couldn't get anything that was more than Biden +8. But they got everything that was Biden +8 and below. One Senate district I highlighted at the end of last week and another House district basically suggested, because Trump wasn't underpolling these people in some of the, if you go back and look at some of the polls that were conducted in Virginia, if they did a rematch, you would see that Trump was actually in, for instance, Senate District 31. It looked like he was actually doing on par with other Republicans. So there is an analysis out there right now. For Decision Desk just released a really interesting one. I'm not sure I agree with everything, but for sure, turnout is a problem for Republicans without Donald Trump. But in any event, SD 31, for instance, suggests that shifted so much if it was put, cut like from the same cloth and applied across the state, statewide, that shift, Donald Trump would carry the state of Virginia. The same is true of 3 different House districts that we looked at. It's interesting. We'll see. Virginia has kind of always disliked Donald Trump. So we'll see if that's the case with a crowded field and a Jill Stein. That's something we have to keep our eye on. But that's one thing that made me raise my eyebrow a little bit. It's not that big of a swing compared to what we have seen. The fact that Biden is holding on to Nevada, even with a small victory, 48.4 to 47.04. Is a little bit surprising to me. The New York Times polls Trump +10. Republicans tend to outperform in that state, but here's why I have long been a skeptic of this state. Here's why I think Donald Trump can win this state this time. 2 reasons. One, in the 22 polling we did, we didn't have a final poll in the Silver State, but we had one pretty close to Election Day that had that Adam Laxalt up by about a little less than 2 points, but rounded to 2 points. His loss was actually baked into the cake, though. You could actually see it. You go back and look, and any honest, objective, analysis of that poll would tell you that he was in the lead. But if Clark County came along to Cortez Masto, then he probably would lose it, whereas Lombardo would hold on. Why? Lombardo and Trump were up in Washoe. Lombardo barely. Trump was up by like 8 or something. It was ridiculous. In Washoe County, where Reno is. That's the county Republicans have lost in the modern era. And that makes it difficult for them to carry the state statewide. They cannot get creamed in Clark. You have to get in the mid-40s, preferably high 40s, win Washoe County, and squeeze the hell out of Douglas, Elk, and the other rural areas in order to win that state. That's what Lombardo did, and he was able to hold on by a little bit. He barely won Washoe, but he did it good enough. He was down in Clark, but he was 70% of the vote statewide comes from Clark County. He was down in Clark, but he wasn't down as far as Adam Laxalt was, and he squeezed enough rural vote share out. Laxalt got more rural vote share, actually, but losing Washoe and underperforming Lombardo in Clark was enough to have him, to have him lose. I'm not getting into shenanigans. You know how I feel about when lights go out and cameras go down, and then all of a sudden late vote breaks, late mail-in voting breaks don't make sense with the rest of the vote break in the same areas, the same precincts. So I'm not getting into that. I understand where some of you may be coming from if you immediately go that route. And I'm saying you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And if you did better in Clark County and Washoe County, you would have won anyway. Donald Trump was up in Washoe by like 8, far more than Lombardo was. And Trump's vote share was much higher. His performance in Clark County also exceeded Lombardo's. So again, Lombardo won. He actually won, which in a lower turnout election, and Trump was outperforming him. So we'd have to poll it again to see. But nationally, Trump is in the 40s now across the board with Hispanic voters. All right. He is in the 40s. It's everybody. It's not just us. It's not just Big Data Poll. The New York Times, Morning Consult, Fox News, CNN. So it ain't no damn mirage. He's in the 40s. In the past, we have seen his increased support among Hispanics come to fruition in Florida, and we saw the impact of it. We even could see it in Arizona somewhat, especially on the border of like Pinal and Maricopa. Gila, by the way, Kerry Lake, it added to his gains among Hispanics in some of those areas. And then, of course, in South Texas, where other Republicans get their butts kicked, but he flips Zapata County. He swings Starr County damn near, 50 points. I don't know. It's ridiculous. He almost won Starr County after losing it. It was like 40-point swing or something. So we saw it there, but that's him in the 30s and is very selective. And in California, you just don't see it. We didn't see it. In New York, we saw some of it, but not as much as we're seeing now. So we didn't see it in New Mexico, which I'm going to get to in a second. We didn't see it in Colorado. So where else would this Hispanic vote share show up? It would show up in Nevada before all these other states. It absolutely would. It's going to show up in Clark County. And you're going to see him damn near carry it if he doesn't outright carry it. I'm not kidding. And then, by the way, we're not the only ones who saw that and recently see it. The New York Times poll was stunning. All right. I would just remind everybody that I said that he was going to come close to carrying Miami-Dade in 20, and I got the same BS pushback. That's ridiculous. He lost Miami-Dade by 30 points. Right. He almost carried Miami-Dade. And by the way, don't just save the gubernatorial election stuff. Save it. Save it. Gubernatorial elections are not predictive of presidential vote preference, which is why the book on my desk right now doesn't reference it, which is why Texera and his opposing Democratic majority doesn't reference it. It's not predictive. Anyway, so it's a little bit funny that, we're seeing these vote shares, Trump adding significant numbers of Biden voters, remorse voters, Biden falling, 5 million votes or so, and still him holding on in Nevada, which he barely held on to in 2020. It was a 3-point race, basically. I mean, it's not, I don't know. It's a little bit weird to me. Also, secondly, Colorado was a bigger margin than New Mexico. Colorado is also younger. Okay. We do have significant white educated populations in both of these states, Colorado and New Mexico, but it is a little bit weird to me that they have Colorado closer than New Mexico. We actually talked about this in the book club yesterday, and then I briefly brought it up last week because I just don't know. I especially with third parties on the ticket, like a Jill Stein. I just think New Mexico is probably going to be closer than the state of Colorado, or it could be. The most likely outcome in my mind is that it is. And I wish we would get a little bit more out of them. And then, we'd be able to make some kind of assessment. So Wisconsin also very, very, very close, but Trump winning it by about a point. All right. Damn near a point. Pennsylvania, big swing. Trump basically, almost at 50%. Georgia, Trump above 50%. Georgia and Pennsylvania are two of the biggest swings. If you click on it, it's very interesting. The state of Georgia, you'll see D plus 39 margin. It is a 7-point swing to Trump in Fulton County. That alone would do tremendous damage to Joe Biden's statewide margin. And that alone would almost ensure that Trump carries the state. But as you can see in DeKalb, he does even better. This is really cool. And in the future, eventually we would like to get something relatively similar. But in Gwinnett, it's another 5-point shift. Cobb is a 5-point shift. Douglas is a 6-point shift. So you see, we have talked about this before, where Walker in our poll was up 1 point. Trump was significantly outperforming Walker, almost 10 points in Fulton County. That's a big deal. That's a lot of votes. He's even moving the Eastern Democratic strongholds 5-6 points. So that's significant. And that would be that's why they have him overall winning it by a pretty consistent margin. All right, so let's move back here. I want to read you some of this while we go back to the, can you click on them from here? You sure can. So we don't have to go back. That's good. All right, so let me read you what, this was supposed to be embargoed until noon. Let me read you, and now it's noon, so that's fine. But it leaked out before, and we all know. New forecast projects Trump to defeat Biden in a head-to-head presidential rematch in largest study yet. And that's what they claim. But again, technically, if you look at the methodology, it's just the largest reported all at once. I'm not sure it technically is the largest if you include Morning Consult, who polls more in a shorter period of time. So Stack Data Strategy interviewed 15,205 U.S. registered voters online between the 13th of October and the 3rd of November. That makes me nervous. Laura will tell you guys know, if you've been following me for a long time, I don't like long-term polling. There has been significant problems with it in the past. CNN had a major boo-boo last election cycle when they had a almost month-long study with the generic ballot. It was very bad. There was a poll in 2016 that I used when I wrote an op-ed, which was covered, I believe, by Rasmussen. It was on People's Pundit Daily. It was Indiana, and I don't need to pick on them, but it was a university in this center, public opinion center. It's been around forever. And they had Ted Cruz up by 2. Conducted a poll over almost a month, very similar to this. Trump obviously won Indiana. That was the end of Ted Cruz's campaign. That was the end of the nomination contest, even though never Trump had held on for as long as they did. They incessantly cited that poll, and we were trying to make the case back then. You cannot poll people over that period of time. Rolling average is fine. You want to continuously track, that's fine. But there is a very, very strong argument against long-term polling. So I want to read something because I want you guys to keep this in mind. All right. He says, we set quotas on age and gender and they interlock them. All right. Because they're doing such a large study, that's okay. You can just set, if you were going after 2,000, 3,000, you probably don't need to interlock them. We don't unless we see a problem. And then before we move on to region, the level of education, why would we do this? All right. The way that it's not just online. It's almost like you wish there was a way to more easily set quotas for other collection methods, whether it's cell phone or peer-to-peer texting surveys or SMS to online, whatever it may be. And you can. There is a way. It's just easier to do it online when you're getting them from panels or whatever it may be. You don't want to get imbalanced collections. So your females are coming in, and they come in hot and heavy, always first, certain ages specifically. But you want to make sure that your gender weights are correct, or your quotas. I mean, because you don't want to have to wait to compensate for having some kind of inadequate sample. Okay. So you don't want women to pack your 45 to 64 age groups, and then your men to pack your 18 to 29 age groups. Okay. then your men are going to be too liberal than men are, overall nationwide, and women are going to be more the older age groups are going to end up being more liberal, and they tend to come in like that, especially those who have a higher level of education, which gets me to this. They also set quotas for region. You absolutely have to do that. We actually get a little bit more granular, but I'm not going to get into it. But we make sure that, yes, it is by region. We just do zips. We have zips grouped. And I'm not going to get into it, Laura. Don't worry. I won't say what we do. But before we even screen the region, and then we're not going to bump anybody out over it, we just want to know where they're coming from first. We have them grouped by zip. All right. So level of educational attainment, ethnicity, and past voting behavior at the last presidential election. I wish they would elaborate on that a little bit more, to be honest, because I don't know if they're intentionally screening out after a while newer voters. If they are, along with setting those more strict quotas for education, they're going to make a boo-boo like a lot of people made in 2016. They're going to miss a potential voting group of non-likely voters that are going to turn North Carolina from their 2-point estimate to more like a 4.5, 5-point estimate. That is the danger that they're running here. Okay. In a state like Wisconsin, that's going to happen significantly. Pennsylvania, not as much of a risk, but in a state like Wisconsin, absolutely. I got to go to Wisconsin here because we're talking about Sauk. R+3. Republicans are losing it. Trump and Johnson are the only ones who seem able to hold on to Sauk. Biden barely edged him out, and now Trump is taking it back by 3 points. That's a winner chicken dinner. They actually say that he's going to lose Dorr, which was an even margin. I don't understand how they are coming up with that. It just could be listen, Dorr is a small population county. They're going to make some slight errors. There's nothing going to be. Nobody is going to be dead ass on. Very, very interesting as well is Racine showing no change, but Kenosha going from R+4 to R+5. Again, you hit R+5 in Kenosha, and it's winner chicken dinner for a Republican. Waukesha, this is incredible to me. There's some big movement in WOW outside of the traditional Republican counties. Like this Paul Ryan's backyard. By the way, he couldn't even hold on to it for Mitt Romney. They friggin' lost it. They lost the Southeast. Outside of friggin' Milwaukee. I kid you not. Trump's even squeezing another 5 points out of Milwaukee, and he's squeezing 10 out of Dane. Why? How? That's Trump's shift with younger voters. I saw people trashing the CNN poll, the 18 to 39 group. Knock yourselves out. Trash away. It's everybody now. It's not just Big Data Poll. It's not just Emerson. It's everyone. It's the New York Times. It's ABC News with Langer Research anyway, not when they hire Ipsos because they don't want Langer to come out with another Trump plus 10. Disgraceful what they did this month, Lord. Disgraceful. Sandbagging Langer Research because they were too favorable to Trump. And instead going to the Ipsos Knowledge Panel, which is garbage. Sorry, it's true. Bayfield. Trump is squeezing another 2 points out of Bayfield, another 2 points out of Ashland, and another 2 points out of Douglas. So we talked about this a lot. I've brought these maps. I put them up before. I overlaid Ronald Reagan's map with Donald Trump's map, and then overlaid Bush's map with Romney's map. And you can see when Republicans cannot carry Wisconsin, it doesn't matter if it's 1984 or if it's 2020, if it's 1988 or if it's 2016 or 2012. You can overlay Ronald Reagan's 80 and 84 wins with Donald Trump's 16 win and his narrow loss in 2020 of this state, which again, I know Trumpers out there are going to go bullshit. He didn't lose it. Indefinitely confined status was ridiculous. They would be right about that. And now there's a whole bunch of other crap going on, by the way. A lot of things are illegal now in Wisconsin that they were able to get away with. So what you would see is like deep, deep blue all over the Northwest and what we call lumberjack country. There are a lot of votes here. If it's a close race and you're talking about 30, 40,000 margin, you got to know that you're going to do well in these areas. And by well, I mean, you cannot get cream like Mitt Romney, 30 to 33%. You just can't do that. Trump and Johnson get in the 40s in lumberjack country, and that keeps the margin down. Because you know you're going to get clobbered in Dane. You know you're going to get clobbered in Milwaukee. Maybe you don't get clobbered as much, but you know you do. Rock, very interesting how close Rock is, by the way. And then Iowa County as well. These are they're the last bastion of Democratic strongholds. Biden will net a ton out of this small little rural county, but Menominee is Democrat and has been for a very long time. Outagamie, that's a slight shift to Trump. Very interesting. No change in Brown, which is where Green Bay is. Also very interesting. So what are you seeing? La Crosse, by the way, is going to go for Biden, of course, but Trump actually takes significant share off of Biden. I mean, that's close for La Crosse. Biden +7, that's close. And then Eau Claire, which is Biden +5, that is also very close. So you just see Trump squeezing out more votes in the rest, of the state. There's a great one. So Taylor, by the way, was Trump +46. Now it's now it's Trump +45. So there's been some change in some of these areas, but a little D +1 here, no change there, no change there. Notice how Biden makes up a little bit, 1 point here, 1 point there. Turnout would be a lot more, though. St. Croix is actually more Trumpy. So is Pierce. So part of the West. Where is Trump doing the damage to Biden here? He's taking blue. He is taking, look more Dodge, right? Columbia. He is taking some here and there. Sauk is a big deal. That's very important to me to see what they did in Sauk. And this is where regression and post stratification analysis was really cool, and we can do that on Market Site one day live, and you'll get a kick out of it. And I'll show you that. All right, so he's taking big chunks from blue areas, and battleground areas are roughly point here that way, point there that way. It's really he's taking votes from Democrat areas, and that's huge. Just want to go to Pennsylvania real quick, and then Florida. Let's go to Florida real quick, because it stunned me how close their results are with our results in Florida. Laura, right? The margin is exactly almost identical to our last poll in Florida. And I want to read you this because in our poll, we could very clearly see Trump had a massive lead, but the governor who just won re-election by 19 points was dead even with Joe Biden, and people gave us a lot of crap from that. But the fact of the matter is, again, gubernatorial elections do not predict presidential vote preference. And what wound up happening with some of these voters, some of them obviously don't show up, and Trump does better with that presidential vote. But there are people who are willing to vote for DeSantis for governor who were not willing to vote for him for president. And that was not the case versus Trump. So just to give you an idea, Biden beats DeSantis in this poll, and it's really a study. I mean, yeah, it's a poll, but in this large-scale survey, he beats him with 359 electoral votes to 179 for DeSantis. So they're being pretty favorable and even giving him that, but it is what we talked about, that he doesn't. Here we go. Let's roll this along. He does not, and they even gave him Iowa. They gave him Ohio, which is honestly, I think, pretty favorable of them to do. Us, Suffolk, others gave him a better than even, but maybe 55% chance of carrying these states. It gets back to being extremely close. Where is this coming from? There's a lot of people who just simply will, and they gave him Florida, by the way, pretty comfortably. Where is this coming from? It's coming from people who just simply will not show up
for Ron DeSantis. And then there are other counties. If we went to Wisconsin, you would see he gets absolutely clobbered up in the Northwest lumberjack country. You see what I'm saying? It's deep, deep, deep blue. Let's see how he does actually in Racine. Very close. Very close. Kenosha, he would maybe not even carry. That's bad. He loses Green. Rock is the only one that holds on for Democrats. And this is just awful. This is awful. And by the way, what does that look like to you? Mitt Romney's map, doesn't it? Looks just like Mitt Romney's map. So there it is. So anyway, let's go back to Trump v. Biden here. Go to Florida real quick. And while I'm reading this, you're going to see Florida pop up here in a second. All right, so there's Trump. It does give Biden Miami-Dade, but barely. I don't know if that would happen. Broward actually shifts another 6 points to Trump. Palm Beach shifts 5 points to Trump. Pinellas goes back to Trump. That was even. It technically went for Biden by 200 votes. 500,000 votes cast. And Biden won it by about 200. It was very, very close. Hillsborough, Biden barely holds on to it. I don't think he would. Honestly, I'm just being real. Just from the polling that we've done, definitely not holding Pinellas. Osceola, that's about right. I'll buy that for $1. Orange County's going to stay with him. This is a big deal. Duval, which has been sliding away from Republicans. Trump carried it in 2016. He narrowly lost it, even though he won by a bigger margin in 2020. This map is a very, very, very decent map. Seminole goes back to Trump. This is almost, again, it's almost identical. The difference is we did have Trump edging out Joe Biden in Miami-Dade. It was just a little bit, but he did. All right. So that was the difference between literally the 7-point win they have for Trump and what we had, which was an 8-point win for Donald Trump. Again, they allocated. Tableau is really cool. We decided not to use Tableau, but it is really cool, and you got to give it to them. It just doesn't. Well, I'll leave that out. That's okay. We don't need to get into the other people. It's a great product. It's a great product. I don't want to, anything. So let me read what Joe Bedell said. He's the head of Stack Data Strategy in North America. He said, our research is the largest exercise of its kind so far this cycle, and we can confidently say, as things currently stand, if Donald Trump is selected as the Republican candidate, he is likely to win. Despite recent calls for change, our polling also shows that neither party would benefit from a change in candidate. President Trump would beat both of Biden's possible replacements by an even greater margin. So Joe Bedell over here is in agreement with us. We've done this. I don't know that anyone else has done it more than us, tested Biden's potential opponents. And we can tell you that despite him being this bumbling, I don't want to use the word senile, but I don't know what else to use. Despite these issues, Joe Biden still nonetheless is the strongest candidate Democrats have. I know that's crazy, but that's the truth. He does better in Pennsylvania, way better than either Kamala Harris or Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom didn't play well at all in the Rust Belt. And by the way, notice they gave Michigan to Biden, although they did it very, very, very close. If you go down here, what's interesting, Wayne actually shifts 3 points to Trump. Oakland shifts 2 points. Livingston's a big, big Republican stronghold. But Monroe goes D+1. Again, no one's ever going to, no change from Macomb. Why am I being skeptical with that? No change to a D+1 between Monroe and Macomb, which could be the difference. I'm telling you right now, that could be the difference between Trump and Biden in the state of Michigan. How well he does in Macomb and Monroe. Why? In order to win, if you're a Republican, especially a Trumper, if you're Trump in the state of Michigan, you must do so well in Monroe and Macomb that you take those margins, what you net out of there, and basically all but wipe out Oakland. Okay? Then you must do so well in the rest of the state. And by the way, that's very close. For Genesee, that's very close. Biden, plus what are they giving it to him? 7 points. Very close. But there's not just Wayne County. Washtenaw, okay? and Ingham, which is liberal. That's where what's her name, Slotkin, represented. Kalamazoo. There are some extremely Republican areas. I mean, Democratic areas, and it's not just Wayne where he's going to net 300,000 votes. And actually, Trump has them under 300,000. That's kind of like the target. You want to be able to, because you need 300,000 in the rest of the state to basically overcome. So you take Monroe and Macomb, and you use that margin. You use your net to all but wipe out Oakland. Okay. And if you do really well in it, you can. So Monroe, they're giving him 29,000 vote net. Okay. In Macomb, they're giving him roughly 41,000 vote net. So let's put it together and let's call it 70 to 80,000. Look at Oakland. It's almost 100,000 votes. So you need Monroe and Macomb to wipe out the Democratic advantage in Oakland, and Trump is very, very close to doing that, okay? Then you need the rest of the state. You're going to lose Kent. That's interesting. Kent went for Trump in 2016, went for Biden in 2020. They're saying that Trump would still lose Kent, even though it would be closer. That's a little bit interesting to me. But okay, again, Kalamazoo, some of these areas, Trump is just slicing off some of the urban vote share, the Democratic stronghold vote share. And Marquette, which is always going to be Democratic for the foreseeable future, is about 3 points less. Very, very cool how they did this. Anyway, Trump is using Chippewa, huge margin, right? That's small, but it doesn't matter. Every vote matters. Mackinac, 2,000. You need to take the rest of the outside of Marquette, Upper Peninsula, and the rest of the central and northern part of the state to wipe out the margin that is around 300,000 vote net in Wayne and the rest of the state. All right, so that's the formula. That is the only one in modern era who's done it is Donald Trump. That was his formula. Even when Rick Snyder was able to win the state at the governor's level, but they're not predictive. He had to contest with this. Republicans at that point were not doing this poorly in Oakland County as they are now. Oakland County has changed dramatically. By the way, Republicans lose Macomb County. They don't even do that well in Monroe, although they win it. They don't do as well as Trump. So again, why am I saying I'm a little bit skeptical about the Monroe and Macomb margins? Because Trump did better in 2016 margin-wise in Macomb than he did in 2020, even though he still held on to, obviously his vote share plus. It's just it was higher turnout. I would be stunned that the state of Michigan could get any closer than the 2 points Biden won it by, okay? Without Monroe and Macomb going back to the margins we saw in 2016. 58%, 60%, 61%. Macomb isn't going to get there, but Monroe can. And I just would be stunned by a result that showed Biden barely holding on. And by the way, less than a point. That means the state is up for grabs right now. They're not dead ass right. They're not 100% right because they interviewed 15,000 people over 3 weeks. They're not. This is the sampling error is 1.5% because it is so big. Ours is 1.9. This is very, very close. This could easily be a Trump win. It's very, very close. I just don't know how Monroe goes back 1 point to the Democrat and Macomb shows no change. Macomb would have to get closer to like 55, 56, and Monroe above 60 again. I just don't buy that with the kind of swings we're seeing, Monroe is not going back up to 60 plus. I just don't buy. I don't. All right. So there we have it. Let me read. This is something that's really, and I know I got to do a ad read here. But this is absolutely devastating for the non-Trump crowd. We had Tim Scott drop out. It'll be interesting. We see what happens with Mr. Scott. But let's go, for instance, back to the main map. Okay. What's interesting here is that DeSantis loses Arizona. He loses Georgia. He loses North Carolina. And by the way, I don't remember his name. He's from Town Hall. And I had to deal with this crowd in 16 when there were early polls that showed like the weakest candidate was Donald Trump. Yet we could see the demographics in the poll. And I would just ask them a simple question. You're more electable? Okay. I'm not over here doing this to support Trump. I'm making an objective argument. You're more electable than Donald Trump, but you don't have that white working class margin. So tell me, where are you going to put together this electoral college coalition? What Rust Belt state, which of the Rust Belt states in the blue wall are you claiming you're going to be able to win in order to, because otherwise we're going back to the Mitt Romney map, and you got to pull it inside a straight flush. What the hell is it called? What's the analogy? I mean, you need to basically roll snake eyes 10 times in a row. Like, you need every single piece to fall, and you need Virginia back, which you're not getting. By the way, it looks like Trump gets closer in Virginia than DeSantis does. But their case was that he can win Arizona. Well, he's losing it here. He could win Georgia. He's losing it. And he can win Wisconsin. That's what I heard from the town hall crowd all the time. Didn't matter that I had map after map after map showing them what happens when a non-Trump Republican runs in Wisconsin. We have 40 years of modern election data in the Badger State to show them, and they just ignored it and blocked it out. This is extremely devastating. And by the way, this guy could have been a rock star. Today, his communications people are on Twitter smearing people, attacking people, trolling people like Kerry Lake. Well, look at you in Arizona. Look at you now. You're 45 points behind in the primary there for a reason. You attacked the most popular Republican politician in the state outside of Donald Trump. And they're on Twitter today like, MAGA has destroyed Arizona. Arizona was on its way to being destroyed, the party there, for a long time. Actually, if you knew anything about how fundraising worked, and the governor himself was the head of the RGA, he did nothing. He didn't give Kerry Lake the money he promised her. Nobody's giving. What they're doing to this new chairman is a disgrace. So the establishment loves to sabotage the grassroots and then blame the grassroots for not raising money or winning. They do it. It's like a demon of their own design. And they make this situation and then they blame others for the situation. It's really remarkable. They're claiming he'd even lose North Carolina. I'm going to go ahead and argue that. I don't know that DeSantis would lose North Carolina, folks. I just don't know if I buy that. I just don't. I know it's very, very close. We're only talking about a 1.17 margin here. But I'll tell you, we constantly hear about the red wave in Florida only in 2020. That is not true. Republicans had an extreme overperformance in New York. They had an extreme overperformance in North Carolina. They won 2 legislative supermajorities. They won 2 Supreme Court, both races up for the Supreme Court. Allen and the other dude won. And now they have control of the court that was liberal for so long and so liberal. Oh, so liberal, every time they had a referendum on voter ID, the liberal court would just tell them, you're racist, voters. We're throwing it out. We don't care about what you voted for, which is why the Supreme Court races are so important. Look at Ohio last week. Hell, if Lila Rose had her Supreme Court in the state of Ohio, they would just very simply rule that your voter sovereignty doesn't matter. All right. So yeah, I just have a hard time believing this. Bottom line. I don't know where these people come up with this. I know Sean Parnell just did. It's like these people said, oh, but the People's Pundit and Sean Parnell said McCarthy's the only one who could fundraise. And Sean is like, we never said that. What the hell? Where do these people come up with this stuff? It's like Arizona and Georgia is not going their way. That argument now has completely collapsed.
Everything they claimed just never came true. And they just try to find something to make up and fabricate. There is no doubt that Kevin McCarthy fundraises more than anyone. There is no doubt that people were relying on him to do it. I never said he was the only one who could fundraise. But if you think that everyone right now believes that the haul, because Republicans did get a very good grassroots haul from the change of speaker. But I'll tell you, one of the biggest concerns in Congress right now is that it is not sustainable. Me personally, I actually have a little bit more of a positive view on it. Why? Because Abigail Spanberger would not have retired if she did not see a very real threat of losing her seat in 2024. She knows Trump's going to be on the ballot. She knows there are going to be people who turn out in Virginia 7 that just normally don't. Dave Bragg, that was old Eric Cantor's district, that's gotten more educated. Anyway, there's that. But so this is very, very devastating to the Never Trump crowd. Okay, so let me read just real quick some of this before we move on, because I do want to talk about what we're gonna do with the Rust Belt poll. All right. This college model, as you can see, gives Trump 292 electoral votes, Biden 246. Oh, by the way, look at Maine. Oh, look at that. Against DeSantis, it's 10 points, a little bit worse than Trump usually does. Look at Biden barely holds on to Maine. I'm telling you, it's not showing up right now. I don't know why. Let's see if it will. But I do think it's showing that RFK pulls away from Trump. I can't tell you. I think Maine is one of the states where it could potentially hurt Biden more to have RFK on the ballot. Maybe I'm wrong, and he pulls mostly from the 2nd congressional district. I honestly would not be surprised if that's the case. He doesn't pull from Portland or Bangor and stuff like that. I would buy that for $1. I really would. New Hampshire gets very, very close. But again, only 4 electoral votes. What it does do is throw the state of Nevada to Donald Trump. But what is it? Is it only the state of Nevada? I think, yeah. Yep, it's the state of Nevada throws it to him, but it's generally no real big difference. Minnesota gets very close, but it is close on the other one. If you go to Harris versus Trump, I just want to show this before we go to a break here. Trump does carry the state of New Hampshire head-to-head, straight up against Harris. He also takes Michigan. Listen, I think this is probably ballpark close. Some of these other states, she wins Virginia by 6. Yeah, I'll buy that for $1. I don't think she holds on to Nevada against Donald Trump. Sorry, I just don't. Her performance with Hispanics, you're telling us, is going to be so strong she's going to be able to hold on to Clark like that? I don't know. Again, very, very cool. I just don't know that I buy it. Look, he takes Washoe and he loses. And look at the margins in Douglas. It's D+2. I honestly don't know. Oh, no, he loses Washoe. That's why. I don't know how Douglas would be more Democratic against Harris anyway. Nye would be D+. Yeah, I'm not seeing Elko move 6 points. I just, again, big margins came out of here for Donald Trump. Big margins came out of here for Laxalt. Again, Eureka, it's such a small sample. I think some of that is causing noise. But he would need Washoe in order to carry the state. And that's very clearly where this is coming from. Do I think he's going to lose it by 3 points? I just don't see it. I really don't. And that underperformance in Clark, I'm sorry, just don't. But again, you never know. They could be right. I could be wrong. I haven't pulled it recently, and I'd have to look at it. But Newsom, let's pull up Newsom, and you can see that Trump does take the state against Gavin Newsom. Newsom has problems, folks. I'm telling you. He doesn't poll well. He even loses the state of friggin' Maine to Trump, Gavin Newsom. I'm telling you, it just doesn't. Look, he holds Virginia, and he holds it by 6 points. Like, Virginia just doesn't want to get any closer than 5 points in the polling for Republicans. He holds Minnesota. He loses Nevada. He loses Arizona. Arizona becomes like a normal, old school kind of margin. North Carolina would be a blowout. Yep. Florida would be a 10-point blowout.
Michigan would go to Trump by about a point, 1.4. I think that's about right. Because listen, partisanship is still strong. You're not going to see these like 5-point victories in a state like Michigan. You're just not. Wisconsin gets to be 2. That, yeah, I believe. I do think in the right circumstances, Trump, Laura and I were just talking about this over the weekend. There was a poll we did in 22 where Trump was actually, we had Oz down by 4 to Fetterman, but Trump was up by 7. And then when we did the final poll, it was weird. Oz got closer and actually looked like he could take the lead. Turnout was enough. It wasn't, and he lost. But Trump was still up by 4. So, it made it very close. It means that Trump would have won the state by about a point under those turnout circumstances. But it's not those turnout circumstances. We're not going to see the non-credentialed voter stay home at such rates that we see in off-cycle general elections and in midterms. We just don't see that. They'll come out for this guy. They're coming out for this guy. So I could, under the right situation, see Trump carry Pennsylvania by like 3 or 4 points. More likely, we're talking about a 2-point win. I just will say this. Be wary. Pennsylvania polls more Trumpy than some of these other states, like Wisconsin. And Wisconsin ended up closer last time than Pennsylvania. Now, it's harder to cheat in Wisconsin. I'm just saying it out loud. Yup. It is harder to cheat in the state of Wisconsin. Sorry. If you just don't accept that there's cheating in Philadelphia and Allegheny County, you're an idiot. You're naive. You're not like me. I'm from machine politics. I'm from working class areas, urban areas where people don't always play by the rules. Somebody brought up a quote, I guess, of mine yesterday, actually, in book club. Human beings are willing to kill for lust, for love, for money, for power. You think they won't stuff a ballot box? You're a child. So Democrats have the art of ballot stuffing in Philadelphia down, and they do. Listen, you don't believe me? Then why was there a huge indictment before the 2020 election, which included a former Democratic congressman over the span of 6 elections, bribing election judges and paying people to stuff the ballot box? It's in the FBI archives, for crying out loud, Justice Department archives. My frenemy, Garrett Archer, was like, just, people bring this up and they never show any real example. And I was like, here you go, Garrett. It's in the archive. He pled guilty to avoid getting massive sentence. What are you talking about? And by the way, Bernie, they bent you over in the 2016 primary. They must have saw what happened in Michigan, Laura, and said, we can't leave anything to chance. We need to stuff the box. All right, so in any event, very, very interesting stuff. We want to, and we can go back to it in a little bit, but we're going to take a quick read here. But I do want to talk to you briefly about what we're going to do here with the Rust Belt poll. So you saw those margins in Iowa and Ohio, and you know how I feel about where I think the trajectory of this nomination is going. The judge in Florida, in part granted one of Trump's things to push back or give him more time, but she didn't outwardly give him a date after the election, which he requested. But she didn't dismiss that with prejudice. She dismissed it without prejudice and gave him more time. So what does that mean? It means she basically said, we'll come back and revisit this later. We'll see where we are. These kinds of cases tend to take a very, very, very long time. Look how long it took for Ghislaine Maxwell to go to trial. All right, so they want to speed this up, chucking in D.C. She wants that right. She wants that. She wants him guilty right after Super Tuesday or during Super Tuesday. That's what she wants. Yeah, she's disgusting. I mean, this is, I don't know how any of you Democrats out there could support this. If this was Barack Obama, I would not be okay with this. Not at all. Not at all. I don't know how many countless Democrats over the years I have stood up for who became the victims of political persecutions. The only one I didn't defend was Andrew Gillum. Because Andrew Gillum's a crook. I don't care about his drug use. I don't care about his affairs. I mean, I care about his drug use. I know my own personal experience. I don't want any other human being trapped in addiction. It's the worst possible state of existence while your heart is beating. So I don't mean it like that. I'm just saying that's not what concerned me about the potential for him being elected governor or for the authorities to charge him with anything. Fact of the matter is, they only charged Andrew Gillum because the donors got screwed out of their money and they wanted retribution. And that's what the FBI is, basically a criminal organization that works on behalf of Democratic donors and Democratic power brokers. That's what they are now. It's sad, but that's the truth. And we're going to talk about this more too soon. This thing with I had a real hard time watching a veteran. I don't care if he was National Guard, active duty Army, regular Army. I had a really hard time watching a veteran be hunted like a dog 3 years after they alleged he did something, which is a ridiculous charge anyway. So scared to turn himself into the FBI that he snuck to a local law enforcement in a neighboring area to surrender because he was afraid they would kill him. Folks, they are doing this on purpose. They're doing this for maximum terror. This would make Maximilian Robespierre, I was going to say a dirty word. This would give him a you-know-what. He'd love this. Of course, the Robespierre before they cut his own damn head off, because that's how this always goes. You support this crap, one day they're going to come for you too. And who the hell is going to stand up to defend you? Disgraceful to watch a man who served his country on Veterans Day weekend being hunted like a dog because he may or may not have picked up a friggin' canister that they threw into the crowd anyway. And by the way, they're not even alleging it was only the officer he sprayed with it. If you believe the highly cropped video that's almost impossible to identify him with, if you believe it, it looks like he's doing what he was trained to do in the military, crowd control. And he wasn't just hitting the officers. Whoever was doing that was also hitting protesters, trying to control the madness, the mayhem. That's what it looks like. Of course, you can't really tell it's him. He's got this thing across his face. And the only picture they put up on the FBI's website has half of his body cropped off. All you can ironically see, Laura, is that he's like holding a canister, or at least who the figure in the photo is holding. You can't see where he's pointing it, who he's pointing it at that particular moment. This is like the Great Terror American edition. This is they could have arrested him without reckless abandonment earlier in the morning. No! They waited for the spectacle. They want that shit on television. They want you to see the stormtroopers arrive. They're not even the FBI. It's like a paramilitary force. You can't tell the difference. Are you the FBI effecting an arrest, or are you FARC trying to overturn a government? The hell is this? It's terrifying stuff. Speaking of which, that's why I'm glad to bring up our next sponsors. Let's take a real quick break and we'll talk more about this when we come back. Did you know that close to 90% of pharmaceuticals in the U.S. are produced outside of the U.S.? COVID taught us nothing. So ask yourself, what happens when the next global crisis strikes? Countries clamp down on exports. They stockpile. The price of imports rise, and pharmaceutical shelves in America are empty. Did you know that approximately 250 million prescriptions are issued every year in the U.S. for amoxicillin alone? It's a staggering number. And statistically speaking, you or someone in your family is going to need a prescription for amoxicillin in the next year, whether we have supply chain shortages or not. That's where the Wellness Company's medical emergency kit comes in. This kit holds 8 potentially life-saving prescription medications inside a compact and convenient case that every single American should keep stocked in their home. Antibiotics, antivirals, and antiparasitics. Medicines like amoxicillin, ivermectin, the Z-Pak, plus a 22-page guidebook with instructions on safe use for each medication. Everything from tick bites to COVID to bioterror events. Every scenario is covered, making it like a doctor in a box. These prescription emergency kits are in huge demand right now. Head to twc.health, links in the description, /TPP, and grab yours before they run out of stock again. That's twc.health /TPP. The code TPP saves you 10% at checkout. We've been watching more and more war and destruction these last few weeks, folks. And who's to say that when the next supply chain disruption could be at our doorstep? Be safe, be prepared, and stay well. Kits are only available in the USA. Again, twc.health /TPP. Save yourself 10% off. Laura, these things are incredible. That is so cool. A Z-Pack, amoxicillin, right? And there's more in there. Bactrin, go look. I mean, it's really incredible. When that happened, we were talking about PPP. I'm talking about COVID and what they were describing there. When that happened, some of us were saying, you cannot rely on China for your antibiotics. They unleashed this friggin' pathogen on all of us. Now they get to have a say on what kind of medicines we get and don't get, how much PPE we get and don't get. And you have others disgustingly scamming for PPE. People in dire need of this shit, and they're scamming people. Some part about me hates this business. That's the truth. A lot of people are just horrible, awful people. They try to suck the fun out of everything. I like the fun of psephology. I really do. I love politics because politics is about people. And I love objective election analysis and forecasting. It's one of the most difficult things to do. Predicting human behavior is actually incredibly difficult. We're a complicated species, and that's what the election prediction business is all about. I mean, you're essentially trying to tell people, I can predict the behavior of all of these people I don't really know, right? And that's the problem the election mafia has had over the years, and that's the problem influencers and so-called pundits who support candidates overtly, they have blind spots. The right has a lot of blind spots too. The left is not the only one who lives in a bubble, folks. There are bubbles on the right. There are establishments on the right. There are status quo people on the right. There are cons on the right, just as many as there are on the left. That's the truth. That is the truth. And they don't know. Yes, it was, that quoted me on that. Yes. They don't know the people that they claim to know well enough that they can predict their behavior. Think about that. Think about that. And we can turn to some people on the left. We can. How does Nate Cohen expect to predict 50 different populations, right? Because they're effectively individual states. If he is wholly unfamiliar with a good 8 or 10 of them that decide the whole damn thing. Why on earth would you expect at the presidential level? There's something different about presidential politics. There is. There's something different about polling it. There's something different about predicting it and analyzing it. It's a different animal altogether. First of all, we're talking about a larger population. The target population is going to be larger, which will make it more difficult and leave you for a lot more room for error. But I'm telling you, I mean, you have to have at least some idea of who these people are and where they come from, All right, so let's take a look at, I got to add 2020 to this so this makes sense to you. But I want to show you a sheet real quick that is the original sheet with how we designed the Rust Belt poll, okay? So, for instance, yeah, we can go back to the thing, and I know it's really cool, and we could check it out. They don't have crosstabs, though, right? Like, that's the thing, right? And I'm not seeing, what is that? That's a share and embed kind of thing. download. I don't know what it would download if we did it. I could look and check it out, but it's probably just going to be the top lines. It would be really cool if, for instance, you clipped on Arizona, which I just did, and it's not doing anything. There's some bugs. That's Tableau. I love it, but there are bugs. It's buggy. Tableau is buggy. All right, so when we click on our states, there's always something at the bottom that says, here it says click on state on the map to see the county level results. By the way, they're giving Biden Maricopa, and yet Trump is still winning it by over a point. That is absolutely possible. Why? Because Apache shifts to Trump by 7 points, although Biden wins it. Coconino shifts to Trump by 6 points, although he wins it. And Pima goes to Trump 3 points, although Biden wins it. And then Trump just squeezes a ton out of Yuma. Yavapai is like no change, but he nets the hell out of, what is that? Almost 40,000 votes. It's ballpark 40,000 votes. 42,000 almost. Navajo, he nets 5 out of, I don't know. Cochise, it's 12,000. To me, you got to win Maricopa. You don't have to, but if you're a Mojave, look at that. Holy moly, 50,000 just in Mojave alone. They're just massive margins in some of these red Arizona counties. Look, you could see Kerry Lake. She almost did it too. Gabe, they robbed Gabe. Boy. Look, I testified in the trial, so you know where I stand on it, but scam artist, son of bitches. Not doing that recall and prolonging it on purpose. Disgusting. It's such a disenfranchising of the voters. It's so bad. That was Ahmadinejad level corrupt, yeah. Anyway, they are saying Maricopa shifts 2 points to Biden +1. Trump, it's not even a +1. It's not even. Biden 48.34 to Trump 47.72. Again, that's a 13,000, less than, it's like 12,000 and change votes. He absolutely can win it without winning Mojave at that. So I was considering, real quick, let me just say this. I was considering Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin. Because we got the Georgia poll up. It's not close to being funded yet. That's the truth. Let me look and see where we're at here. No, I can't see it. So net, does Trump overperform his 2020 result? Yeah. Alex. Freaking fly. I hate these things. That's funny, Alex. And I get it. I understand your frustration. I really do. I was thinking that, but we're not. Let's see. Just to give you a heads up here, Georgia's only 26% funded. The national, which we did already, and I told you the Rust Belt poll will use the rest of the funding in the national crowdfunding campaign, and we'll just put that into the Rust Belt poll. We're at 51% there. I'll tell you what, though, what's really cool is that, well, it's not cool we're not there yet being funded, but what is cool is that we have a lot more donor base than we have in the past. We're growing our donor base, which means less financial burden for the people who routinely give to the public polling project, and that has always been the point. So we could get to a point where everyone gives $5, and we're totally funded for the month. And the ultimate goal, of course, is to have a locals page so big that it funds at least one a month. All right, so that's of course the overall goal. Yeah, third world countries run fairer elections in Maricopa County. That's absolutely, I'm telling you what I saw there. I don't care about all the apologists. That was disgusting. And the worst part about it is, Todd, you obviously put a lot of work, because I saw the Maricopa County plan, and Todd and his team put a ton of work in there to obviously try to make sure that the election went off without a hitch. They screwed this SOB, and then they scapegoated him. That's even worse. They tried to scapegoat him. They did. Anyway, so Arizona, Georgia, and Wisconsin were the three kind of trifecta ones I was thinking, but we weren't anywhere near in Georgia, and we had the Rust Belt poll up. So what I'm thinking is kind of a modified version of the Rust Belt poll. This is what the Rust Belt poll is typically, all right? Sample size is huge, but Iowa is about 7% of the total Big Six vote. Michigan is about 20% of the total Big Six vote. Minnesota is about 12% of the total Big Six vote. Ohio is about 23% of the total Big Six. Pennsylvania's 26, it's the biggest, and Wisconsin's 12, like Minnesota. So what I was thinking is that Ohio and Iowa are done. Could we add them? Sure. And I have it right now set up to collect 1,200 from Ohio, a little bit less than 1,000 in Iowa. Michigan would be about 1,020. And what we'll simply do, what we'll simply do is make it much closer to even collection across the states. So we're essentially doing each state that we're going to do alone. But then we will calculate its overall share of the Big Six or the Big Three, whatever we decide to do. And I think that's what I'm thinking. The Big Three, for instance, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. And then we will pretty much do exactly what Stack is doing, which is, it's more than just weighting them down. Why I might want to do it this way? Because each of the Rust Belt poll, depending on the state they're in, they are drilled down by county and locality. So we can have if we do every state like it's an individual poll with at least, ballpark 1,000 from each state, then we'll be able to drill down and be, the county by county thing they're doing there is a little bit of a stretch, in my opinion. All right. Why? Because Edison Research conducts over 40,000 interviews to get me comfortable enough to say, I think I know how a county's going to go. And then I still see a difference, Laura, every election cycle. For instance, there would be 3,500 interviews conducted in Arizona alone just to see how Maricopa is going to go. So we like to at least try to show you regions of a state. What do I mean by that? For instance, let me look up, let's look up Wisconsin, something, let me go actually really quick overall. And then, I could do some of them in my head real quick, but it's been a little bit here. So it would be interesting to try to see some of the ones you don't really look at every day. All right. So, now Minnesota's kind of easy. All right, Michigan, which is weird. That's a good example. So you have Wayne County, which is about 16% of the overall vote. The Edison Research, what is it called? The National Exit Consortium or something. NEPs, right? They just alone in the state of Michigan was almost 3,000 total respondents. 16% were from Wayne, which, by the way, that's, telling you that Biden's going to win 69-30. Southeast, outside of Wayne, which includes Monroe, right, which is very, very important, 27% of the vote. East Central, 24% of the vote. The Southwest, 19% of the vote. North Central and up, right, the Upper Peninsula, 14% of the vote. And I can show you if we, I don't want to show you that. Hold on. Let me just remove that briefly so you don't see anything that's, something you're not supposed to see. I'm not sure I have the weights right here. I could show you definitions if you, Wolverine, right? Wolverine. Oh, it's right there, actually. I was looking at it recently. Bear with me. And it should give you the regional definitions. If not, I probably put it somewhere else. Yeah, so there it is. I'd have to go back, though, and give everybody an idea of what counties are what. But there's interesting here. We had Trump up 56-44 in Macomb, 62-38 in Monroe. So really, let me put that up there so you guys can see. I'm trying to give you an idea of how many respondents we had to collect to be able to give you an accurate county by county example. And we were pretty damn close. I mean, we pegged Macomb at 5644. It came in around what, 5440 something. We pegged Monroe 6238. It came in at 59 to 41 or something. So very, 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 very close. And then, but again, in order to weight this and see that, how much in Wayne, how much in Oak, it takes a lot of responses. So that's my proposal. We take 3 at least, and we collect a S-ton load of them. And then we have enough that we can, model them all out. And at the very least, maybe I'm not promising you we'll do counties like that, but at the very least, we will show you regionals. All right. Because I don't think we're getting 3,000 responses per damn state. And again, what was it? 4,000 almost? No, it was almost 3,000 in Pennsylvania. Oops, that's Oregon. Hold on. Oregon was small for the national exit polls. They're very small. The NAPs. Oregon is not that big of a state. It's less than 1,000 interviews. But Pennsylvania, for instance, huge state. You ready? 3,090 interviews were conducted to get an accurate exit poll in the state of Pennsylvania, or at least close to accurate. In Philadelphia, they kind of nailed. Biden 81, Trump 18, 11% of the total vote. The Philly suburbs, 58-41. The Northeast, Trump, 17% of it, 53-46. Central, 61-38. The West, 56-43. And that's another thing. For you guys who have been following for a while, you know how we do something a little bit different. In Pennsylvania, we pull out Dutch country. We do not do Dutch country the way everybody else does Dutch country. Okay? By the way, we nailed Michigan. Look at that. Biden +2. Nailed it. Nailed it. Anyway, yeah, that's the thing, Jonathan. I'm a little bit perturbed. Maybe the crosstabs are out there and I just haven't seen them yet. Is it possible? I hope so. Does anybody know where the crosstabs are? I saw them in their blog. Maybe it's in the data. I don't know. But me personally, I'm a crosstab guy. I love my maps. But I'd really, really, really love to see more in depth. I know we're talking about a huge amount of columns and rows, but oh, look, exploring the data, that's a mobile dashboard. See, that's the one thing. I love how Tableau can display graphics like that, can display maps and of that nature, but they're not particularly great at crosstabs, and weighting variables are a little bit of a pain in the butt. Other market site, Crunch.io, they do that very, very well. All right. So again, it's cool to see this, but I would love to really be able to dig down a lot more into this. Interestingly, they still, like I said, they still give Biden the electoral vote edge. The popular vote edge, and the electoral votes for Trump. So if Trump did somehow win the popular vote, 49-48, 50-49, whatever it may be, then you can see how much of a dramatic difference that could have. All right, so I know it's 1:30. A couple of other things got to talk about. And give me 1 second. I'm just going to pull on my vape here. I got to let this thing try to get out. It's driving me nuts. He's going around and... Oh, maybe I can get him right now. Folks, cover your ears, folks. Cover your ears. Oh, he slipped right through. I'm a master at getting flies. You have to. And at that time, it was just me. It's like my wedding ring sometimes is clunky. It makes my hand shift over. You have to like clap above the fly because they'll fly into the clap. They're so stupid. No, it's the way their sight is. No, they're not dumb. It's the way their sight is. No, the fly. But yeah, a couple of things. Yeah, just to bring up here. We have, I don't know that I want to say this publicly yet, but I do have somebody, I have somebody who I got to talk to here real soon, which you guys would want me to talk to. All right. So that's it. What about a targeted study of a handful of them? Arizona, Georgia, PA. That's what we were talking about, Jonathan, actually, with, what?
We're talking about finding all the fraud. And I said that would be very expensive, just even by an individual state, because you have to have every
Oh,
eligible
we've
person.
done we've
I
we
know.
we've done this before. It's extremely expensive to
Expensive.
try to chase down fraudulent ballots after the fact.
And find them,
Extremely.
because you could predict it, but it would be a fortune.
Well, we went through this before 2020. I showed people the warning signs, the change of address flags, the inactive
And that's just
statuses
the
that were
bare minimum.
changing. That's low hanging fruit, right? There are people who are legitimately eligible to vote, Laura, but just don't. Somebody, brings their ballot in for them. That just happens. That's true. That's why, by the way, they just ordered another election in Connecticut. I mean, that happens. But it's extremely expensive. You know how much that study that we did in Michigan last year or last cycle, 2020, what got me banned at first? Thank you, Tucker, for bringing me back. And by the way, I got to say this again, on that Google sheet that Jim Jordan released, but sent to the FBI to look up every single person who may have been saying they're questioning the election. The last tweet before they vaporized me said that we were going to use our resources to look into this. The examples I cited, there's a column called review, and in that column they give you their assessment of their team that review the claims. They said patently that what I put up is true, but the clerk must have a good reason for it. They must have a good explanation, but that, yes, is the official site, and they appear to be. Those ballots appear to have been submitted. No crap. I didn't need you to validate what I was saying to be true. Anyway, it costs tens and tens of thousands of dollars, Jonathan, just to do Michigan. It cost 10 grand just to get it off the ground. It was a lot. And that was randomized sampling still. So we were targeting the state. We were doing targeted random samples. We didn't pull everything. Had we pulled everything, I mean, it would have been a lot of money. And then you have to have people call and talk to these people, right? Somebody's got to call them and talk to them. Somebody's got to say, hey, Mr. John Smith, I just want to validate, that you did this. Did you sign this absentee ballot affidavit? You have a change of address flag on your record. Did you not sign this absentee ballot affidavit that is supposedly your signature here? Did you not cast your vote? Did you request your ballot be sent to this address instead of the other address that you're no longer eligible to vote at? And Jocelyn Benson would not give them up. So that's when we hit the brick wall anyway, because all we could show you is that, yes, these records had requested and submitted ballots, but we weren't able to definitively cross them off the list because Jocelyn Benson wouldn't give us the information to do it. I mean, that's ultimately, Laura, that's ultimately, if she would have just did it, by the way, it's state law that you have to hold those affidavits for at least 2 years, and they just ignored us, patently ignored us, and the fraud investigator that we hired independently to check our work. So, I mean, if they wanted all of it to come out to light, they would have just cooperated. You want to make sure that nobody believes elections were rigged or stolen, just cooperate. If you won legitimately and you want people to know that you're a legitimate regime, then don't you cooperate? It's like a no-brainer. That's what Tucker and I were talking about. Why would you not cooperate? Why would you ghost us like that? We didn't call with pointing and wagging our finger. We were incredibly professional. In fact, hoping to debunk a lot of that. That was the goal. The goal was to find the truth. But in my heart of hearts, of course, I wanted to debunk most of it, at least as much as we could, because it's not healthy for society to continuously have elections that are lacking credibility. Self-governing societies don't survive like that. They don't. All right. So that's one thing we want to bring up. Also, in order to get this done, this is a very large study. In order to get it created and done, this is something we're going to have to, cut stuff short. I would have to get this going right now. It's big. I mean, it's a big, big study. Every single county has to be inserted, and then everyone has to have their own logic rules, the correct logic rules. Oops. Looks like I started Iowa anyway. I just went into the back end of it. It's not much. It's not a big deal. It's not exactly, terribly, terribly costly. Yeah, I know. Let me see. I just want to look real quick. It's only a couple. It was right before. I don't know. Lately, I've been like accidentally launching soft launches, which is fine. It's a very Republican sample so far. Wow. Wow. Almost half consistently tell us this is going to be their first Iowa caucus. Yep. Oof. Kim Reynolds is not looking good. Her numbers? I mean, it's early. It's very, very little, but it's early. Cannot be persuaded to change my mind. So far, every single person who picked Donald Trump said they cannot be persuaded to change their mind. Every single response so far. And now it's early, but that's noteworthy, especially since he's the only one whose supporters do that, including Joe Biden's. Joe Biden's about at 60%. I won't change my mind. The endorsement is not having an impact. Almost 80% say it's either negative or has no impact so far, which, by the way, is like 20%. So that leaves about 20%. So that's about the amount that said they're voting for someone else anyway. So they're not really changing anybody's mind. It's just people who aren't supporting Trump saying, oh, yeah, it makes an impact. That's it. Only about half of Trump's voters say they can be counted on to support the Republican nominee. My God. My God. My God. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. Maybe they had a much, much larger sample. And they, again, I can't see the crosstabs, so I don't know how many people are telling them crossover-wise. Like, if you're a Trump supporter, how many of them are saying, okay, yeah, I'll still vote, and I'll vote for DeSantis in those in that study? I don't know, because we don't have that information, but it does look like a shrunken electorate. I don't know. Maybe DeSantis winds up winning a state like Trump's going to win Ohio by 13 points. He winds up winning it by like 4 or something. Maybe that's what they're seeing. I don't know, but I do absolutely, in my own, I can see that you cannot count on Donald Trump's voters to come out. And when you can't, that just has been a recipe for disaster for the Republican Party. I mean, that's what happened last week. It's with the, I'm gonna be easy on Virginia Republicans. I honestly think, that people have to understand, Virginia's blue. It's blue. I think they did a hell of a job. I do. I think they, except for Owen. That guy is just Owens. To barely beat Susanna Gibson like that, 900 votes. Because of Goochland, by the way. He still lost in Rico by like 4 points. That's unbelievable. Just unbelievable to me. All right, so with that in mind, it is 1:30. We'll end a little bit early so we can get this done. Locals, as soon as I'm done, I will put this up, okay? As soon as I'm done. And we'll go and we'll talk about it a little bit. I'm thinking, like I said, at least the 3, at least. I just don't know that I see the point of Ohio and Iowa. Maybe we could do the caucuses with Iowa, and that's fine. But I just don't. Well, the only benefit is ancestral voting groups. There's a benefit, right? There are German ancestry voting groups in the Ohio Valley, all through Appalachia. That would benefit us, because you're going to see how they are in Ohio versus Pennsylvania, right? Iowa, there's a lot of crossover in ethnic groups, white ethnicities or national origins, when you're talking about Iowa and Wisconsin. So maybe there is. I don't know, locals. Tell me what you think. We'll put, throw it in the live chat. Tell me what you guys think. we'll decide. We'll go from there. But maybe Ponce de Leon should have searched for the Fountain of Youth in Michigan. the Lazarus vote, right? Yeah. We've showed you guys the voter file before. You can see how many people in the state of Michigan are friggin' dead, but on the voter file still.
I said that the cold must keep them
Keep you
fresh
alive longer,
from
right?
after they die.
The blood right.
Oh, they were like 115. My favorite was the 100 and like, oh, wasn't he almost 200 years old? That guy.
No,
that
it
you
was like
got?
146. It was
It was-
146 or
it-
something.
it-
140 or some ridiculous. I'm like, how
It's
did they
just
even have
crazy.
records? Right. Like it was so old, we were wondering how they even had records that old. I mean, really. And that's another thing. I'd love to see how they did their age weights in that study. I'd love to see how they did their partisan weighting, because guys, you can go to Michigan right now and there's no party registration. So you have to do inference in Michigan. Michigan looks like it's close to R+4 in the inference modeling. Here, let me show you. I have it up right now. So even though when you go to Macomb specifically, it's still Democratic. Weird, right? But not weird, because that's why Trump wins Macomb, but other Republicans don't. All right. Look, so here's the inference model. And this was over very, very broad. I did not put any, only excluding deceased and those with a change of address flag. I didn't exclude inactives, vote histories, anything like that. And you could see unknown 31.6, inferred to be Republican 36.2, and that's Roman. Inferred to be Democrat 32.4. So damn near, R plus almost 4. Male 48.8, female 51.2. And just out of curiosity, I believe Michigan was what female? What male? Let me see. Gender. By party, it was even in 2020 at 38. Independents were 23. It was 37% conservative, 38% moderate, 25% liberal, 46% male. That would have no doubt hurt Donald Trump. It was more male in 2016. I believe it was 48% male. I actually have that up in the Rust Belt sampling design poll. That's, I believe, what it was, but it was also more Democratic. So it goes to show you that you can have a more Republican electorate, but if it's more female and more educated, you may not have as good of or as easy as a time as if it is more, God dang it, more male, but less Republican. All right. So, yeah, I'm going to kill you, USOB. I'm going to kill you. You're going down. Goodbye. Victorious. Where's my Beowulf theme song? Where's my Beowulf theme song?
You'll get copyright issues.
Tough. I'll take it. In 2012, it was 49% male. In 2016, it was 48% male. In 2018, it was 48% male. The voter file itself is about 48. So yeah, in 2020, a lot more female than Michigan ever should have been. If you believe the exit polls, if you're to believe them. I'm curious what the National Co-op Project has. I bet they're different. I'm very curious to see. But anyway, as you can see, and when we go to Michigan, I know they did some purging, but look, we're still up to 114 voters. There are thousands of voters over 100 years old. Thousands of them. Look at them. Thousands, folks. Do you see that? I mean, that's not a small amount. Holy moly. And 101,313, we were not able to identify their age. How is that possible, you ask? There's no birth date on their voter file. How could somebody be registered to vote if the state doesn't know about what their birthday is? Good question. Automobile records and everything are attached to this database. So even if they didn't write something down specifically when they registered to vote, they would have been matched anyway with the DMV. This is just not a legit record. It's dirt. We say the voter rolls are dirty. That's dirt. There are 2,192 records that are 100 years old. There are 1,744 who are 101. There are 1,493 who are 102. There are 1,193 who are 103 years old. There are 972 104-year-olds, 927 105-year-olds, 722 106-year-olds, 597 107-year-olds, 536 108-year-olds, 501 109-year-olds, 388 110-year-olds, 362 111-year-olds, 295 112-year-olds, 248 113-year-olds, 197 114 years old. So, Laura, at least they got rid of that dude who was 140.
Wow, that's really cleaning it up, guys. Good job. I just can't. I can't. This is ridiculous. It's so easy to do, too. So it just shows you how maniacal they really are.
I'm telling you, it's real easy to just get rid of them. You know that. I mean, you don't have to go to even the bicentennial folks. I mean, you can go to the what? Safe to say nobody's 105 or more, right? So you can get rid of that immediately in a very, very, very close election. You know that. Think about 2016. You're talking about 10,000 vote margin in this state. 10,000 votes. Don't tell me that doesn't matter. It matters. All right. So with that in mind, we're going to boogie on out of here. And like I said, a couple of them in the next week or two, especially if we're going to be doing all this, I'll have to edge out a little bit early. I got somebody I got to talk to at 2:30, and hopefully locals and YouTube, I'll, probably be able to talk to you more about this. We'll see though. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be an in-confidence conversation. We'll see. And if it is, it is. But I'd like to tell you about it. And we're going to have to sneak some of this work in before that. It's just that's the way it is. If we're going to be doing them this large of surveys, that's the way it is. I'm going to mix kind of the Mid-Atlantic battleground poll, the Midwest Mid-Atlantic. It's going to be kind of modeled like that. Remember how we started phasing out Iowa and Ohio? Probably going to start there. And if we want to add them afterwards, we could just add them. But I may just put them all. But I'm going to start with the Mid-Atlantic kind of model in 2020 when we took Iowa and Ohio off the board. When Trump's lead was just so big, we were like, this is a waste of money. And we just took it off the board. Public Polling Project was linked to the last crosstab, and that was it. That's what we did moving forward. So it was no longer the big six. It's also, I'm afraid, going to inflate Trump's lead. But, if we keep Minnesota in it, then that's okay, because Minnesota would inflate Biden's lead probably. Maybe not anymore. It did in 2020 when we had Biden winning that state by 10. He won by 7. We overstated him a little bit. But it was helping to balance out the big six because Trump's lead in Ohio was so big. Minnesota's only like 12%. Ohio's like 20% of the entire sample, which is why, again, I want to do them. Whatever we do individually as individual states, and then we can model them out just basically like they did. And I would much rather have more responses and weight down than have fewer responses and have to fill in the blanks. I don't do it. You won't catch me doing it. I don't do it. Bigger is better in polling, period. All right. Sample size matters in polling.
Amen.
Amen. So with that in mind, it's 1:40. I think we'll kick rocks now. Don't forget, if you like the videos, subscribe. If you're on Rumble, best place to follow us, of course, no matter where you are. But if you're on Rumble, it's easy. It's peoplespundit.locals.com. It's right on. Don't forget to hit the like button on Rumble and subscribe. YouTubers, don't forget to hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. Again, start cross-subscribing. You never know when somebody just gets nuked. Boof. So thanks to our sponsor today, of course. You guys should definitely go check out the Wellness Company's Emergency Med Kit. Link is in the description. Well, one more time for you, it is twc.health/TPP. TWC, the Wellness Company, .health/TPP to get yourself 10% off that emergency kit of potentially life-saving antivirals, antiparasitics, antibiotics. All right. And of course, our friends at Jam and Bean, links in the description as well. And we will see you guys on Wednesday, Eastern Standard Time, noon, as always. All right. Locals, stay tuned. We're going to throw this questionnaire up there and bat it around. All right. Let's kick it around. Let's brainstorm. All right. Nothing but love for you folks. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers. See you very soon.